So I'm going to invite Anne in a second, but I got to watch Anne speak in Madrid last year, and to be quite honest, as someone who loves allyship and community care and teaches in a trauma-informed way, I was like, who's this white lady talking about systems of oppression and racism? To be honest, but after watching her speak, she has so much knowledge, and the way that she delivers her message is delivered with such care. And so I know that she's going to have a phenomenal presentation for you. So please give it up for Anne.
Wow. I'm so deeply honored to be with all of you, and just so deeply moved by what I've heard so far, and thank you so much, Leslie, honestly. Yeah. So I'm here to talk about co-evolving community care. And you might be wondering, what does that mean? A lot of it is what we've been talking about, and it's about building intersectional pathways for healing, for collaboration, for liberation, and doing that in a very embodied and a bottom-up kind of way. So it's moving out of different paradigms that many of us have learned, that we've been, conditioned in, that we have been raised in, and so it's learning how to transform, transmute, to get to another place of newness. And I believe it's really possible because all of us are sitting here together today to listen to each other, to really speak to a heart-centered way of being in the world, which actually is about supporting each of us to be authentic, to be radically inclusive, to be open, to really feel a deep sense of belonging and community. So what I invite us all to do, if you feel open and called in to do it, is just to place your hand on your heart and say to yourself, I welcome me.
I welcome me.
I love me.
I love me.
And I welcome all parts of me.
And I welcome all parts of me.
And I invite you to also say that to you. So I welcome you.
I welcome you.
And I welcome all parts of you.
And I welcome all parts of you.
And I love you.
And I love you.
And so this is Heart Sight. So for me, Heart Sight is really about relational attunement and resonance. It's about building relational capacity. It's about being intersectional in how we feel and how we think and how we move and how we become and undo what was never us to begin with. It's about moving in a place of really recognizing social and healing justice and seeing that my healing is connected to your healing and connected to your liberation. And we actually can't do this on our own. And we're not able to transform systems until we're really willing to do the deep work of healing our own nervous systems. Because many of our nervous systems have been entrenched and colonized and really deeply influenced by paradigms that none of us actually had any choice in. So one of the things that I really think about is that separation is one of the greatest illusions. And, certainly we all had this experience with the pandemic where we came together, that we could really feel each other's heart and pain and struggle, that we moved out of some of the 9-to-5 distractions that keep us in ways where we're moving in isolation and individualism. And so when we can deepen into this recognition of our interconnectivity, we can see that it's the mind that often keeps us separate. It's our thoughts that keep us separate often from each other. And for me, this goes way beyond just our ego. It actually comes down to the different ways in which our mind has been influenced and co-opted by many of the intersectional systems that we all interact with. And it affects us in very different ways. And so I didn't even invite, it was so interesting because during this whole process, I just really felt called in. And so I became a Y timer, which is really World Helped by You. And I'm at a place in my life where things are just coming to me. It's really an odd experience where you don't actually have to chase anything. You're just attracting because you're more and more in your own embodiment and alignment. And so for me, it's just really, I'm here to help awaken this larger picture that we all exist in. And I'm really here to help be a global citizen and to be globally engaged and to do my own part and my own healing so that I can help with the light and, raising frequency and vibration and whatever words that means to you. But it's really just to support solidarity and radical inclusion. And so this is a quote that I love by Thomas Hugel, which is like collaboration and participation and global social witnessing and planetary citizenship is essential values for our era. And we can no longer wait for current structures and governments, govern minds, in order to take action. We must act and we must grow together into new versions of ourselves. And so in order to do that, for me, we have to look at this oppression tree. We have to really recognize these roots. We have to see that white body supremacy, patriarchy, colonization, caste systems, all these ideologies and institutions impact what we see in our world today. And this is an image by the vegan amateur. And so you can see there's cis heteronormativity, we have individualism, we have hustle culture, ageism, Islamophobia, houselessness, climate change, xenophobia, racism, classism, sexism. These are all part of what these roots create. So we need to each do our part in attending to these roots. And how do we do that? We need to do that together. So Kimberly Crenshaw is an amazing Black scholar who came up with the term intersectionality, so I really want to give credence and credit to her work in terms of looking at the ways in which, our power and our privilege collides and locks and intersects, and how we all have our own unique experiences of discrimination and privilege, and it hits us in these various ways. And so we need to have conversations. We need to be open for dialogue. We need to include conflict. We need to see that conflict can be actually generative if we can actually have meaningful dialogue where we don't need sameness, we can celebrate diversity. And so this is an experience that I had in Bali where I became deeply connected to nature, to our own deep-rooted nature. And when you look at the trees, how much a tree is similar to our own branch system, right? Our lung system, the way we breathe. When you look at the structure of these trees, the roots of these trees in Bali, they're both on top and under the ground. And you can see that when you look up, there's this whole network that can be connected. And this here is actually a web, which it was when there was a question, if you look to nature, what does nature want to tell you? And that's what I saw was this interconnected web, this beautiful web that really spun this really beautiful message for me around healing being about ultimately restoring this web of life, restoring relationship, restoring our capacity to resonate with each other. Yeah. So we talk a lot about mental health and we talk a lot about trauma. And one of the things that really speaks to me, because I sit every single day as a psychotherapist, as a transformational leader and coach with people who are sharing feelings, expressing pain. We all hold pain because we are dealing with these underneath experiences. And then we have these institutions and pathological ways of defining them when really these are authentic expressions and what needs to be happening. So just really focusing on listening deeply, centering lived experience, collaborating, being trauma responsive, value-based, being anti-oppressive and anti-racist, really focusing on experiential models of care, being curious with one another, not assuming that we know what another person's experience is, being willing to lean in, holding cultural humility with deep reverence and respect, and holding space with compassion. And so I get curious because many interactions that we can have, the nervous system shows up in this way. So we get into fight patterns within ourselves and with each other. Irritability, anger, aggression. We also experience a lot of freeze, stuckness, collapse, immobilization, spacing out. You wonder why there's things happening in our world and there's a lack of mobilization around it. And I come to this kind of awareness that there's a lot of systems in our world that are in freeze. And also fawning. So when there isn't equitable choice, when there isn't equitable spaces where we don't always feel included or belong, we tend to need to people please or to avoid conflict. You know, it's hard to say no, so we develop protective parts of ourselves that will show up to take care of ourselves. So sometimes when I look at imposter syndrome, I think about, oh, there can be a perfectionist part, there can be a people-pleasing part, there can be different ways in which we've needed to be because there hasn't been equitable choice. So this is a way of just kind of noticing. Sarah spoke about this earlier, just around energy. And when you come to see that when we're in full flow, when we can actually allow our energy to move, when we can feel spaciousness with ourselves and others, we move out of freeze. So this is a picture of a tree that's been frozen. One of the things that you can see in nature is that the branches become individualized. They're rigid. They're hard to be flexible. But when you actually support an unthawing process, things can bloom, and things can bloom in multiple directions. And so a lot of my work is really connected to, really supporting a co-healing process where we heal and we relate and we unthaw emotionally together. And so our healing is a part of collective liberation. Your healing is, my healing is. And when we do that, we can come into our experiences with one another and with each other with more connection, with more openness, a deeper sense of harmony, a way to be more empathic. I can't be empathic and compassionate with you if I've never done that for myself. There's a different level of receptivity where you can really allow yourself to receive. You can invite more and more in. And you can do that because there's much more capacity within our own system to then resonate more fully. And then we can allow more emergent conditions. We don't just have to have the same replications of trauma over and over across people and across systems. We can have new and innovative and bigger, expansive solutions. And I think each one of you here is a part of that, and I'm really honored to be a part of this community. And so this is just an article, part of Passion Vista, and I just wanted to really highlight this. So this was an experience that came to me. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited, thank you so much. Anyway, it was an honor, and it's part of my deep desire to just really support people to be in compassionate and radical, embodied relationships with themselves and through self-leadership. And that liberated relationships are one of the ways in which we actually create abundant justice. The understanding that there is enough attention, care, resource, and connection for all of us to access belonging and to be in our dignity and safe in community. And that is a quote by Adrienne Murray Brown. So what emerges when outlived paradigms fall? What opens up when collective care is recreated? We have more justice and we have more intersectional leadership. We have more opportunities of what we define as leadership. I actually feel that many of people in positions of leadership are leading from old paradigms, and that the more collaborative and inclusive and open and engaged that we can be in our own relationships, we can bring more authenticity and passion and collaboration and solidarity. And what can happen is we can have a pluriverse as opposed to a universe. We can have lots of different pathways that intersect, and we can support power to shift. So I just want to say thanks for co-evolving community care together. It's been such a pleasure and a privilege, and this is just a little bit about my journey and some of the people that I've collaborated with. Thank you.